啦。
Members, I think we can start. We've arranged two sessions today. After the first session, there will be a break of 10 minutes. So we're going to start the second session at 5:40 p.m. if we need the second session. And if members have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest in the matter before members, please observe Rule of Procedure Section 83A. Please declare your interest and then explain the nature of the interest. And also, may I remind members to observe the voting requirements if you have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest. So this is FCR 2013-2014 item 3. Now, in fact, we haven't completed the work on the 24th of April. So members are invited to approve supplementary provision of $100 million to enable an injection to be made to the Disaster Relief Fund, and to delegate to the Financial Secretary the authority to make grants each in excess of $8 million for the purpose of providing emergency relief to earthquake victims in Sichuan Province in the mainland upon the advice of the Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee. To answer members' questions, we have the following officials in attendance: the CS4A, the Director of Administration, and the Deputy Director of Administration. As at the 2nd of May, a total of 416 written comments or representations have been received. They have been sent to members by electronic means, and they have been uploaded onto the LegCo website. And with regard to Section 37A of the Finance Committee Rules of Procedure, members are invited to note that Mr. K.K. Fong, Mr. Kenneth Chan, Mr. Gary Fan, Mr. Sin Chung Kan, Mr. Albert Chan, at the last meeting, put forward a total of 13 motions in accordance with Section 37A of the Rules of Procedure of the Finance Committee. I am of the view that these motions are directly relevant to the item being discussed, and I will be dealing with these motions one by one after the Q&A session has come to an end. So there are members who weren't able to speak in the first round. But before I invite members to speak, I understand the CS4A would like to make a short speech. Yes. Now, concerning the Sichuan earthquake, it occurred 2 weeks ago, and 196 people died, 21 were lost, and we had a lot of people who were injured, and we have 2 million people who have been affected by the earthquake. I think timing is important when we talk about this earthquake donation. We hope that this amount can reach the victims as early as possible, and I think this is precisely the reason why we have the Disaster Relief Fund. I believe members are sympathetic, they are concerned, and they would like to lend a helping hand. They would like to give some help and support to the victims. Now, Hong Kong people are well known for their generosity and also their sympathy. I understand that in Hong Kong, a total of $170 million have been raised to support the Lushan disaster relief cause. And I understand that Singapore, Taiwan, Macau, and other governments have also made donations to the mainland government and mainland organs. And so I think if we also support this cause, I think it's important that we endorse the donation as soon as possible. Now, in fact, non-government organizations can also apply to the Disaster Relief Fund to apply for funds to purchase certain relief items for victims. And of course, the government there can also is also in a better position to coordinate the relief and rehabilitation works. For example, purchasing badly needed medical supplies and also repairing roads and so on and so forth. In fact, in 2004, in the tsunami, Sri Lanka and Indonesia, or the Sri Lanka Indonesian governments received a donation, and we also gave a donation to the Chinese government. I think members have accepted this practice, and that is to allow the government organizations concerned to flexibly make use of the donations to provide timely relief to the victims. And then the authorities will be able to give us evaluation reports at a later stage. So we are now adopting a similar approach this time. And if members have any comments concerning making donations to government departments or government organs, I am willing to consult the Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee at a later date. And if this funding application is approved, we will be in close liaison with the provincial authorities so that the money can be used very effectively to help the victims. And we are confident that the provincial government will make the best use of the donation to help the victims in a timely manner, and afterwards there will be an evaluation report given, provided by the provincial authorities, and we will be presenting this report to members. I understand that members will be proposing motions concerning allowing relief organizations to apply for the funding. In fact, this can be done. In fact, the balance of the fund as at the end of 2013 was $48.5 million, and this amount is enough for relief organizations to provide disaster relief for the Lushan earthquake victims. In fact, we've already approved the applications from 5 organizations amounting to $21.7 million. And the amount of the applications ranges from $2 to $6 million. So concerning applications which have been approved and which will be processed, the total we do have enough money in the fund to meet these commitments. So there is no need for supplementary provision in this regard. I want to say that concerning the rehabilitation program after the Wenchuan earthquake in 2008, in fact, it was structured, it was systematic. I understand that there are some allegations from some newspapers, from some members, but I think they are not well-founded. In fact, a total of $9 billion have been allocated. 115 projects were taken up by the government, 32 by non-government organizations, and 171 or 93% have been completed. The $9 billion have been injected into the Sichuan Earthquake Rehabilitation Fund. And for each item, we have separate accounts. There are separate agreements detailing the specifications, the scope, the budgeted amounts. And there are proper monitoring mechanisms. There are professional consultants to carry out inspections. There is input from Hong Kong people. In fact, the Sichuan Province attaches great importance to the assistance given by the SAR government, and we do have coordination mechanisms at the provincial level and at the county level. In fact, we have had over 70 meetings on various projects, 1,000 meetings at the working level, and we have had a lot of inspections, about 400 inspections. We've reported to LegCo 9 times. There were 5 meetings at the highest level involving the CS4A, and then 9 meetings at the next level. And LegCo now no longer needs us to provide regular reports, and in fact on many occasions our reports were commended by members. We can see that the efforts were constructive. Now at this Yang'an earthquake, we have 26 items, 17 of an education nature, 4 of a social welfare nature, 5 of a medical nature, and we're talking about 404 million renminbi in total. And I want to say that these buildings are still structurally sound after the earthquake. But of course, it's true that there are some damages, but they can still be used after proper maintenance. And I want to say that, in fact, for these buildings, if there are minor earthquakes, they can be repaired, and if there are major earthquakes, they will not collapse. And we have got an expert group to give advice. We also have regular liaison and dialogue with the Sichuan authorities. Now, so we're talking about the now we 5 years ago we had the Wenchuan earthquake, and in the past 5 years I was involved in the various aspects and stages of the rehabilitation project, and I can see that the provincial authorities did make very prudent and proper use of the funds, and the provincial government in the evaluation report has provided details concerning the nature of the work, scope of the works. At the moment, the provincial government is now trying to resettle the victims and has already started planning concerning reconstruction and rehabilitation works. That because the rainy season will come, and there are, in fact, and this will pose risk to the victims. And I think timing is important. We should not, at this juncture, doubt the commitment of the mainland authorities in helping the victims. I think it's important, and I think it's meaning. If we approve this funding, that it has some meaning, and that will it shows our concern for our compatriots. So I hope that members will support this funding application. Now, members asked me to read out the names last time. All right, I'll read out the names, and members, please press the button if you wish to speak. Yip Kit Yun, Liu Chong, Kong Lam Tai Fai, Chuck Yan, Claudia Mo, Albert Ho, James Tin, Kenneth Leung, Priscilla Leung, Yu Si Wing, Albert Chan, Leung Kwa Hong, Lo Wai Kwa, Christopher Zhang, Chong Kwok Chu, Tam Yu Chong. These are for the first round, and then second round, a few members have pressed the button. All right, 4 minutes for questions and answers from officials. All right, so members, please try to observe the time limit. Mr. Yip Kim Yun. Oh, so he's out of time. Good. Mr. Martin Liu. Yes, Chairman, I support the injection of $100 million into the disaster relief fund. I think the victims of the earthquake are badly in need of assistance. In the past week or so, on TV and in newspapers, we saw very saddening scenes. We saw moving stories. And these victims in Sichuan are our compatriots. In fact, if there are people who need help, Hong Kong should lend a helping hand in a humane manner. In fact, previously we helped Thailand and other countries. So even if these victims are not our compatriots, we still should give assistance. Now, in fact, a total amount of $170 million has been raised by the various sectors. So it shows that Hong Kong people are sympathetic and charitable. And I understand that Taiwan and Macau have already made donations. Some people doubt whether the Sichuan government can effectively make use of the donation to provide disaster relief. Now, in fact, previously, FC approved donations to the Qinghai province and to the Sichuan province for disaster relief. And I understand that the two provinces did give reports to the Hong Kong SAR on the use of the funding, and there is no evidence to show that the donations have gone to feed the corrupt officials. We have seen objective data, and for those allegations that the money has been pocketed by corrupt officials, I don't think they really have concrete evidence to back up their allegations. I think we are always charitable and willing to help. And if we do not approve this donation, are we trying to punish the corrupt officials, or are we in fact punishing the victims? I think we have to join hands and work with the local government in order to coordinate disaster relief work. And with regard to the school being demolished, in fact, it was an NGO project. So I think this example shows that it may not be really possible for us to properly monitor the work of NGOs. But then I understand that concerning the donation for constructing the school, that money has already been returned to the Hong Kong SAR government, thanks to the efforts of the SAR government. And I don't think NGOs are in a position to negotiate with the local governments or to monitor the performance of the local governments better than the SAR government does. And also, as the CS4A has pointed out, there is still a balance of over $40 million in the fund, and so non-government relief organizations can still apply for funding. And I think we should make this donation our top priority. During SARS, the central government did not hesitate in providing us with the supplies we needed. The SAR or the central government did not feel that there was no need for it to help us because Hong Kong was a wealthy place. And of course, we must not forget other assistance given by the central government, including the individual traveller scheme and SEPA. Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Yes, thank you. Last time, many members said that they were worried that $100 million would not be able to reach the victims. And some members asserted that the entire amount would go into the pockets of mainland officials. But I think such conclusions or remarks are too biased. In 2008, the Sichuan earthquake occurred, and within a very short period of time, the Hong Kong SAR government and non-government organizations were able to raise a total of over $10 billion for the victims. And as a result, timely assistance was given to the victims. Reconstruction could start almost immediately.
So we could see unification of the entire country, but unfortunately in the last few years there was a lot of abuse of donation money. Of course, we were very heartbroken and we felt saddened as to why mainland officials were so heartless and turned a blind eye to the plight of the victims. Of course, there were grievances and therefore there were criticisms, and such criticism would hurt the feelings of people on both sides of the boundary. But rather than just voicing our grievances, let us try to find solutions. Therefore, this time around, I have heard many members say that we should monitor the donation and how it is used, and we have asked for regular reports. I think that is quite reasonable, because only by so doing we can make sure that the donation money really has gone to help the victims. So CS, I hope you understand, we do not want to confront you. We just want the SALG to do a good deed in a concrete way, and that the donation is not given just for the sake of face. In Lushan, Ya'an, the earthquake is not as serious as the one in Wenchuan, but you can see that also the earth was open and a lot of buildings collapsed, and actually victims had no roof over their head. As a Chinese, when we saw such scenes, when we heard such news, and if our government could afford it, why don't we try to support and show care and concern to our compatriots? I think this is essential, and this is something we should do. So if we just sit with our arms folded, if we just want to care for our own business and we just worry that the donation money would go into the pockets of the corrupt officials, I think we are just scaremongering ourselves and we are too pessimistic. If that is what we are going to do, our compatriots would not feel our care and concern. Mr. Chairman, if someone breaks the law and takes away the donation money, in the end, I'm sure there will be karma, there will be revenge from heaven. So let us not worry about that. This time around, maybe the donation will again meet up with devil corrupt officials. But let us ourselves try to be compassionate. Let us think of our connection with the compatriots. Let us think about connecting with the mainland and also be frank. Let us think about our long-term interests. I would not object to the application. Let us trust the government one more time. Let us trust that they can monitor the use of the donation and also get evaluation reports. I hope we should be accommodating, but it doesn't mean that we condone wrong deeds. We just give them another chance, show them another trust, so they treasure the donation that we support. I hope there will be smooth passing of this application. Mr. Lee Chek-yan, are you here? Mr. Albert Ho? Mr. Chairman, just now Mr. Martin Liao said that so-called corruption is just rumor, that there has never been any hard evidence and data to show there was corrupt dealing. Let me read out some information for you. This is from the press. If it is not a true report, then the mainland government should have already clarified it in the first instance. January 2009 in Beichuan, $1.1 million were used to buy luxury SUVs. And also in Wenchuan, Xiang Shimao, who was suspected of embezzling money which should have been used for buying construction materials, was reinstated, and he embezzled $20 million. And another official took away $1.3 million donation money, and $600,000 was pocketed by him, and then another $0.51 million just disappeared. And then 421 party officials were penalized because of corruption. And then in November 2011, Zhang Tongrong, a mayor, was guilty of embezzling $25 million and also donation money for buying construction materials. And then when checks were done on the 2011 reconstruction, it was found that 11 projects did not comply with the standards and rules, and in fact a luxury office building was put up. And this kind of phenomenon was for all to see. And then in 2011, apart from this luxury office building, there was also a huge area of having glass curtain on the outer wall. And also there were massive buildings in excess of the permitted area to be used. So this is just a list of 4 incidents. I believe many more have been buried and not known to the public. I think the situation is extremely serious, or else it would not have been the case that people from the mainland had preferred to donate to Oxfam and other NGOs in Hong Kong so that they could take the money back to the victims directly on the mainland. You see how people are working hard to make sure that the donation will go to the victims. And I think the CE has said that this is a G to G kind of donation. It shows that the government here cares for the government in Sichuan. So are we actually talking about caring for the victims? If we do not have a good system, then I think there is nothing we can do about the donation. It will just go to the Sichuan government. It is just a proclamation of our care and concern for the Sichuan government, not the victims. Let us take a look. Let us take a look at the provinces and cities in the mainland. Beijing gave $5 million. Hebei, Shansi, $5 million. and the biggest amount was just 10 million. Why is it that we are giving 100 million? And why is that money going to the government, not the people? So I think the money should go to the NGOs so that we are sure the donation will go to the victims. That is how we show care and concern to Chinese people. So I cannot support the donation application. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Chairman. Let us get it clear here. We are going to vote on the application from the government. It is not about helping the victims or donating to the victims. We are talking about voting to support or not support an application for funding from the administration. So let us not say that if we do not support the application, it is inhuman. It is about monitoring the government. In the last 2 weeks, my constituents support my objection to the application from the administration. They are unanimous in saying that I should object to the application. Yes, we should help the victims, but if the donation is not going to reach the victims in part or in whole, it is not acceptable. As a government, you must, of course, exercise your responsibility to make sure that every cent, every penny of the donation would reach the hands of the victims. I have this thought. If we want to help the victims in Sichuan, and if it is to be coordinated by the Sichuan provincial government, then why can't we do this? That the Sichuan provisional government will propose a few projects or items to the Hong Kong SARG so that all will add up to $100 million, and then the SARG will be directly responsible for the few infrastructural projects proposed by the Sichuan government. And then if we can have an audit report after they are completed, then I would support it. However, the SARG has been lazy. You have just gone by the established practice. So I now have my constituents' mandate not to support the donation application. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Leung, please just use Chinese instead of a mixed code in future. Priscilla Leung. Chairman, on this provision application, I think it all boils down to trust. I have heard many members say that there is no trust that the money will be put to good use, and also that previously on the mainland, some donation money indeed has been misused and that has been exposed. So some members and also members of the public in Hong Kong are worried, and therefore they have reservations. But to me, we are talking about making a donation. Maybe in the past there was once, or that there was some bad experience, just like Hong Kong people going to Shenzhen, you might give money to the beggars, but some of them are not really beggars, so you were cheated. But then there are others who indeed were in need. So are you saying that if in certain circumstance people might not do a good job, and so you make a sweeping decision that we should vote down all provision for donations to be made? And also, should we just ask the general question whether all donation money will go to corrupt officials? I think this hurts the victims and the NGOs a lot. I'm not as optimistic as saying that all the donation had gone to the victims or had been well used. Indeed, there was some misuse, even including the Red Cross. When there is such a big disaster, natural disaster on the mainland, the people need the money. When we make the donation, and if we say we ask you 100 questions, and if you answer them satisfactorily, then we give them the donation. Well, if that's the case, it defeats the original purpose. It shows that you are quite heartless. And some people say the mainland is already very rich. Why do you want to give it money? Well, this is to show you care. This is a way to show your care and concern for the disaster area. So it is not a matter of whether they have the money. Rather, whether at this moment we want to make the donation, so we express our wishes, well wishes for the people. In the process, I believe that message has been reached by the government on the mainland, meaning that we want them to put the money to good use. Last time, during the last Sichuan earthquake, I remember Mr. Raymond Ho and also another member actually made a visit to Sichuan, and they came back to tell us whether projects were undertaken in a proper manner. So should we make a sweeping statement to veto the provision application? I would say no. And therefore, I would say that since there is this big disaster on the mainland, and of course we know things are not perfect, and we will actually stipulate that there should be regular reports in the future, and our SALG should follow up on us, and members can actually form a group and make visits to the disaster area in the future. And this will answer the question of whether the money will go down the drain or will go into the pockets of corrupt officials. Mr. Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Chairman. We are very closely linked to the mainland. And when Hong Kong had problems in recent years, the mainland helped us. In the 60s, we did not have potable water to feed the people, and Dongjiang water was introduced into Hong Kong. There was rationing of water once every 4 days. And also, the mainland was not exactly in a very good shape, yet non-staple foods kept coming in. And also in 2003, when we had SARS, to support the Hong Kong economy, there was IVS introduced, and so the retail and tourism industries in Hong Kong were helped. And therefore, when there are natural disasters on the mainland, Hong Kong people have always been very generous in making donations to support the victims. Now in Ya'an, there is this natural disaster. The SALG has the responsibility to provide assistance. If we cite corruption and therefore refuse to help, then the victims will even be in a more disadvantageous position, and volunteers and NGOs will not be fairly treated. I hope you will not be biased in your view, but support the donation. Thank you. Mr. Yu Si-wing. Mr. Albert Chan. Thank you. The People Power objects to the provision application. This is because if you love the people there, you're going to hurt them. And members are asking us to trust the government. Remember, Mao Zedong says even your parents are not your close relatives, but Chairman Mao should be your closest friend or relative. If you trust the government now, there would only be more sloppy building works in Sichuan. 5 years ago, when the earthquake happened, I went there within a week, and I went there 3 times in all, and I myself raised $200,000 to rebuild a Zhang raised village. And now we have another Richter scale 7 earthquake, and again many buildings collapsed. In other words, some rebuilt villages that are not even 5 years old have collapsed again. This is really a disaster for everybody. And we are not just talking about corrupt officials. Even NGOs on the mainland are ripping the victims of their money. We, of course, want to help. Of course, we show sympathy. But then a lot of sad stories are manufactured in order to make you donate money, and then they would profiteer from it. On the websites, you can see that the Chinese Red Cross or RCSC has got the donations and in kind which have been dumped in small molehills. They say they want money. They don't want help in kind. They say so they throw away the relief goods and items. So you can see when there is public scrutiny and the world's scrutiny, they are still wasting resources. They are still pocketing money. Now you ask us for $100 million. And if you talk about donations, cities and provinces on the mainland are just giving $5 to $10 million. 5 years ago, CS, we topped the world in making donations. We donated 11.5 billion renminbi, but all other 68 countries and places in the world together only put up 48.8 billion renminbi. So Hong Kong alone amounted to 1/4 of the world's donation last time. I don't know how much of that went into the pockets of the corrupt officials. So we can only trust the system. We cannot trust the party or the leaders. Who are we to trust? Because facts are telling us that the leaders are not trustworthy, the people are not trustworthy. How can you ask us to trust them? CS, you have been quite frank. You told the media that you cannot guarantee anything. You cannot guarantee that the money will not go to the corrupt officials. This is exactly because you cannot guarantee. This is exactly because we do not trust the system on the mainland, so we can't make the donation. We want them to build up a good system. Even mainlanders are also co-shouldering the call for donations. So I don't think we should support the application. And also, if you make the donation, you are going to hurt other people. Tan Zuoren, who was going after the sloppy building works, now he has been thrown into jail. All opposing voices would have to be suppressed so that the corrupt officials can swallow the donation. Therefore, the more donation you make, the corrupt officials would have all the more motive to silence all objection voices so they can keep the donation safe in their pockets. Leung Kwok Hong.
Of course, I object to the application for funding because something has already gone wrong, whether it was a school, I think, and the road that we paid for. Whenever it rains, there will be mudslide on that road. For such projects, obviously they have cheated the people of Hong Kong, and this is undeniable. They're really insulting the people of Hong Kong. When I took a bus to the airport and I was not allowed to board the plane for Sichuan, LegCo was sending a delegation to the disaster area, and they said that what I would do would be contrary to the purpose of that trip. What did I take along? I just took along an open petition letter and a banner asking for the investigation into those shoddy projects. Such shoddy products have cost the lives of so many people. Even now, we have not found out the reason, and the person who asked for the administration is now put it behind bars. When I watch cable TV, the person at the time responsible for disaster relief and the deputy mayor is now the mayor. When the victims asked for justice because of children that died, and they had to find out who was responsible for the shoddy products causing the deaths of these children. And 5 years have passed and they haven't investigated into that. Furthermore, they are actually intimidating people who are petitioning to Beijing. So this is really, unbearable. And now we say that there is an urgent need to provide relief. It's not true that the mainland is lacking in money. They want the people of Hong Kong to show that we care. If we are a little bit slow in expressing our care, will the people die? We are now suggesting that the donation should be, specifically, given to specified projects, and you say you can't do that. So it's not that we don't want to donate the money, but we want the money to be appropriately spent. And you say that we're talking about a gesture here. We shouldn't, dictate on the mainland officials how they should use the donations for disaster relief. So, Madam CS, there's no way you can ensure that. So why are you asking us to approve the donation? In the mainland, it's not that the mainland lacks funds to provide relief to the victims. They have the money. Our central authorities and the Sichuan government both have money. Don't say that they don't, otherwise it would be a joke. What I'm saying is very simple. I think the money should be, should go to designated projects. There should be designated persons to monitor those projects. If you say that this can't be done, then I fail to see the logic there. Madam CS, do you think that the Hong Kong administration will do that? Of course not. Why is it that what the Hong Kong government cannot do, the Sichuan government will do? You must explain that. The Sichuan government, if it shouldn't be for the Sichuan government to do it, why should we allow them to continue to do that? All right? Don't accuse us of refusing to donate money for disaster relief. We are saying that the money should be donated, but you shouldn't be lazy. You have to give us the assurance. Mr. Low White Court. Thank you. I am the trustee of the trust fund for the charitable for the disaster relief funds in Sichuan. It's not a lot. The fund is not very large, but over the last few years, we have been providing our professional advice on these reconstruction works, including the Development Bureau, and also we work together with the reconstruction team in Sichuan. And this fund also support the Hong Kong engineers going to the mainland, to Sichuan, to help with the infrastructural projects such as hospitals and so on. We assist by providing technical backup and also take delivery of those projects. We see there's a lot of reconstruction work which has been done in Sichuan. And 5 years ago, after the major earthquake, Sichuan has actually completed its reconstruction. So just because of some negative, coverage, I don't think we should allow that to stop the people of Hong Kong from providing donation to the victims. Yesterday we heard from a lady engineer who is now in Yang'an, Sichuan. She, together with another engineer, went to the disaster area to comfort the victims, and also earlier on they had a seedling project, and they were helping Yangon to inspect the schools there. I'm concerned about the reconstructed buildings after the last earthquake, and asked whether or not they could give us some information. And she sent me some information by email. She said that the people in the Education Bureau are very unhappy about some of the reports in Hong Kong. She said that there are 39 schools in Lushan. None of them built after the Wenchun earthquake did not suffer from any structural problems. Only some of the minor non-structural walls had to be repaired, but the structural integrity was not affected. At Long Mun County, the Long Mun school also suffered similar damages. Again, it could be repaired, and they fully comply with the design parameters. So, this is the latest we've heard from a lady engineer, who is presently in the disaster area. So many of the construction works had actually done a lot to help the victims. So I don't think we should be biased, and I therefore am in favor of this application for $100 million for disaster relief to help the victims of Sichuan. To Cheung Kwok Chi. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to declare that on behalf of this council, I've actually joined the Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee. I'm one of its members. regarding the present incident, I don't think anyone in Hong Kong would object to the provision of funds to help for disaster relief, and I don't think members of the FC would object to that either. The question is, how do we allocate the funds to help the victims? Some people have commented that that corruption is quite common in the mainland. The question is, how do we avoid corruption, and that is the most important. Others say, never mind, we should do our best to help as many people as possible. Even if 80% of the funds will go to the pockets of the officials, at least 20% will go to the pockets of the victims. Others say that, ask whether or not we can trust the NGOs. Actually, many NGOs actually work together with organizations and governments in the mainland, and in the process, can we ensure that there is no corruption 100%? Nobody would know. All these comments or views have been, circulating around us. But I believe that when the money goes to the mainland, we can't avoid things from happening. But we believe in the system. If there is a funding system requiring the NGOs to submit a detailed report or account, and that we should stipulate the rules for the NGOs regarding the administration fees. It shouldn't be more than 5% of the total amount of grants. I think this is the Hong Kong style of supervision. After we've donated large amounts of funds to the provincial government, the expectation is a lot simpler than what we require of the NGOs. If we make a similar requirement of the local government, it might be some difficult. But does it really mean that we should simply accept a very simple report from them? So as a member of the DRFAC, I'd like to say to this council that, having heard members' views, I will relay them to the advisory committee on disaster relief of the Disaster Relief Fund, and that we should make certain demands of the local governments in the mainland, and that the report submission be so brief, and then we should provide detailed account of how the money has been spent, so that we can give a full and clear account to this council. We are now asking, what happened to the several tens of millions of dollars we donated the last time? After we've read the report, we still can't answer the question. So we think that accountability is the most important. In the process of supervision, the NGOs, other than trusting the NGOs, we don't know. We can't say the same thing about the local governments. Someone asked whether the NGOs are 100% clean. If we send people there to the mainland to carry out the supervision, that would be best, because we will be in touch with the local situation. So, or I will be raising these issues to the Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee. Mr. Tam Yu Chung. Thank you. Whether we have corruption either in Hong Kong or in the mainland, the people of Hong Kong are really angry and infuriated. We can see that the central authorities, especially the new administration and the new leadership, has recently implemented many measures to further strengthen the system. This is obvious to all. I heard Mr. Albert Ho just now citing many examples. These are scandals revealed by many authorities, and the culprits have been punished accordingly. So the fact that such corruption has been revealed and the culprits held responsible is a good thing. If everything were covered up as if nothing had happened, then the problem would be even more serious. So the problem of corruption requires long-term effort for us to tackle the problem. Whether it's the central authorities or the Hong Kong, we need to be always on the lookout, and we've also made many suggestions to the central authority, and I believe they are constantly making improvements. But just because we have such incidents and we link this up with the donation issue, that I think is not necessary. I think we should treat them as separate issues. Just now the CSFA said at his opening remark, in fact she helped clarify some of the things about the reconstruction works that the Hong Kong SARG had been involved in, and that it will continue to follow up on how the money donated from Hong Kong have been used. So it's not simply the donation of the money, but there will be follow-up. So making the donation simply signifies the close relationship between Hong Kong and the mainland. And whenever there are problems in the mainland, even though the economy is now well developed, the country has become more affluent. However, Hong Kong is part of China. I think we should, express our care and concern in a timely manner. This is only our duty. Mr. Michael Tin, Chairman, I hope that the funding application will be approved today. Lending the victims in the disaster area is the wish of the majority of the people of Hong Kong. What they're most concerned about is how much of every single dollar we donate will go to the hands of the victims. I'd like to remind members that in the past, when we helped other countries who were suffering from a natural disaster like the tsunami in South Asia, did we consider the question of corruption in those places? Did we have the determination to ensure that every single cent will go to the hands of the victims? Someone suggested that China is now very rich and doesn't need our donations. But then why do we have this inverted discrimination? We seem to have double standards for our motherland, which I don't understand. Mother Teresa said that if you do a deed of charity, people say you're selfish, you have ulterior motives. Whatever that may be, you still have to do charitable work. Many people propose that the money should go to the NGOs. We already have the Disaster Relief Fund with a balance of several tens of millions of dollars. What's the point of topping it up further? For some of the projects, the NGO simply cannot tackle. If the river is polluted, if there is landslide, how can the NGOs help? All that requires, intervention by the government. The donation is for the government to embark on large-scale projects which normal NGOs cannot undertake. So we must be able to tell the difference. Finally, I hope that the funding approval will be approved. This is the second time the whole of China is watching us. If the funding approval is not funding is not approved today, it will really be a shame. And the next time when we come back, I think we should really select a designated project so that we can oversee the whole process to ensure that the work is actually implemented. So I sincerely like to urge all members today not to stall this any further. Otherwise, we'll become a laughing stock and say that we don't even have that, little bit of compassion. Madam Liwei Starry Lee. First of all, I'd like to declare that I'm a member of the Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee. The earthquake illusion had happened 2 weeks ago. We saw on the television screen many of the villagers in the remote areas still awaiting assistance. So there's an urgent need for relief, and there's an urgent need to approve the funding. I have observed a lot of observation within our community, and many members have also made remarks in this council. Some said that if we were to make a donation this time, then it will all go to the pockets of the corrupt officials in the mainland. And I think that is far too extreme, and it has totally ruled out what the government had done in disaster relief and reconstruction. Some people say that we shouldn't make donate any money, but that would be, punishing the victims in disguise. Others say that we should only donate to the NGOs, and as some members pointed out, that the Disaster Relief Fund already has a mechanism for NGOs to apply for funding, and recently a few NGOs have already applied to that fund. We must admit that when you have a large-scale natural disaster, projects that could be undertaken by the government are not the same as those to be undertaken by NGOs. Just, for example, clearing the road so that relief materials could be sent to the victims is not a task that could be undertaken by the NGOs. So I therefore like to urge members not to, just because of some incidents of corruption, I hope members will not refuse to approve the funding this time. I understand that some officials in the mainland had not properly, dealt with the donations, but we cannot, deny what they have done. As a member of the DRAC, recently previously, I think we've also made similar donations, not only to the mainland government. Early on, after the tsunami in South Asia, we made donations to Maldives, Sri Lanka. So our requirements for these governments are the same, and we've not applied a separate standard for the mainland government. In 2011, we also made donations to Japan in the wake of the earthquake and the tsunami. So this mechanism had been applied consistently whenever we made donations to other jurisdictions. I've been hearing members' concern. I've closely monitored the concerns of our community over this issue. If the funding were approved by this council, I will ask the administration to relay their concerns to the Sichuan Provincial government, and when they submit a report, they should elaborate in detail how the donations have been put to use. So I hope members will therefore, approve the application as soon as possible, so that the funds can go to the victims as soon as possible. Priscilla Leung, you have a second round. I think if that's the case, you can wait. Will I have a chance for my second round today? Anyway, I'd like to make up for a declaration, which I didn't make. I'll wait until you do this when your second round comes. Mr. Yik Chi Wing, thank you. So far, we've heard about all the reasons for objecting to the application, because members are worried about the effectiveness of the donation, and then eventually the Yangon victims will not be helped. However, the victims in Yangon urgently are in need of assistance, and this is undeniable fact. Making the donation shows our concern and care about our compatriots in the mainland, and disaster relief requires speedy action. Although the Liberal Party donated 10,000 tins of milk powder to supplement the nutrition for the senior citizens and young infants in the disaster area. Such gestures can only provide some immediate relief. We have more than 1.7 million victims, and many NGOs, given the gravity of the disaster, have also started to raise funds on their own.
So they hope that they can raise money to help the victims, so that the Liberal Party also supports this funding application. We hope that the application can be approved as soon as possible, because it's important that we provide urgent and timely relief to the victims. We understand that the local government is preoccupied with helping the victims, and I don't think at this stage we can keep pressing the Sichuan provincial government for undertakings or promises. In fact, previously when we approved donations, we didn't specify certain conditions. I think the $100 million is not enough at all to really provide all the help that the victims need to them, but at least we can show our support and care for them. Now we have 6 members who would like to make comments in the second round. Other members who would like to speak? As I understand that some members like to press the button only at a later stage. But anyway, I will read out the names: Claudia Mo, Christopher Zhang, Wong Yok Mem, Helena Wong, Fernando Zhang, and Priscilla Le. 2 minutes for each member. Miss Claudia Mo is not in this conference room. In fact, she has been in the conference room all afternoon. Claudia Mo, Christopher Zhang, Wong Yok Mem are not in the conference room. Helena Wong. Chairman, thank you. Now, I'm a teacher, and if I give a fail mark to a student for an assignment or in a test or an exam, I expect the student to submit a better assignment next time. But I'm disappointed because this time we are presented with the same paper. We are not opposing making the donation. We are unhappy because there is no mechanism whereby we can monitor where the money has gone to. So we don't like the idea of such unmonitored donations. Now, concerning this advisory committee, Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee, it has only a few members, and you'll only be providing a report to the committee on the recommendations. So is it that in fact you do have some recommendations in mind, but you are not disclosing them to us, and you want us to approve the funding first, and then you will share your ideas with the Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee? Now, I think you should let her answer first, or else she won't have a chance to give an answer. Now, as the paper suggests, after getting approval, we will consult the advisory committee in accordance with established procedures. So these are the procedures. So we'll more or less use the same document to seek the advisory committee's support for the donation. As some members have pointed out, now concerning the donation from the SAR government to other governments, this is the mechanism that we have been adopting. But if members want to see some improvements to the mechanism, then we can see how we can improve upon it at a later stage. Mr. Fernando Zhang, I want to ask the CSFA a few simple questions. Does the SAR government have the responsibility to make sure that public money is used wisely? Is it your responsibility to make sure that the money will not be squandered away and will not end up in the pockets of corrupt officials? Now, we have this responsibility to make use to make sure that public money is wisely spent. And so we have to follow the established mechanism, and we will definitely submit an evaluation report to LegCo. Mr. Fernando Zhang, I am glad that you are saying that you have this responsibility. And second, does the SAR government has the ability to monitor how the Sichuan government uses the money in order to make sure that the SAR donations will not go to corrupt officials? Chairman, as I have said just now, for different donations, we have different mechanisms. Concerning funding to NGOs, we have a mechanism that's detailed in a paper. And then concerning the mechanism for government-to-government donation, we allow the government in question the greatest flexibility to make use of the donation. In fact, this concept has been endorsed by the FC and the advisory committee on previous occasions. In the past 5 years, the SAR government and the Sichuan provincial government have already established a very good working relationship. And if this application is approved, we will follow up with the provincial government to make sure that the victims can get the assistance they need as soon as possible. But then, Chairman, we saw corruption and malpractices in the last round of donations. We've seen a lot of sloppy building works, and I want to know what the SAR government has done and or what it can do. I want to state, Chairman, that concerning the $9 billion for the rehabilitation and reconstruction of Sichuan, there was very vigorous monitoring. Now, time's up, CS4A. I think you've already clarified this position many times. Ms. Priscilla Leung, I want to formally declare that I'm a member of the Disaster Relief Fund Advisory Committee, Chairman. And then second, I want to say that even if members do not support the funding application, they should not politicize the matter. Last time, some members said that those who supported the funding application were trying to ingratiate themselves with the mainland authorities. I hope that members will not make such remarks. Let's not approach the matter from a political angle. We should not try to impute motives into other members. We should approach the matter from the angle or from the perspective of making donations. Ms. Claudia Mo, just now you were not in the conference room. Mr. Raymond Wong, I was a bit late. So Claudia Mo, Leung Kwok Hong, and then Wong Yuk Man. That's the sequence. Ms. Claudia Mo, 2 minutes. I have two questions for the CS4A chairman. I feel rather surprised. On the one hand, we are told that providing relief to the earthquake victims is an urgent matter. It's as urgent as fighting a fire. And then we are also told that $100 million represent just a token of compassion and care. So, and you are insisting that the donation must be G to G because repairing the roads or the bridges are major projects. So, are we talking about very urgent tasks or non-urgent tasks? Repairing roads and bridges are major projects, and $100 million is merely a drop in the ocean. And I want to know how you've come up with the figure $100 million. Beijing and Shanghai each donated $5 million. Why is it that we need to donate $100 million? But I want to say that if we're talking about repairing bridges and roads, $100 million is really nothing. CS4A, Chairman, I've never said that the $100 million will be for major projects like those suggested by Ms. Mo and Mr. Kenneth Leung. But last time, CS4A, you said that the projects will include constructing roads and bridges. Now, concerning the donations made to the provincial government, they could be used for buying medical supplies and also emergency repair of damaged facilities. For example, in fact, there may be facilities inside the victims' homes which are of a life-supporting nature. But then for the projects, construction projects, reconstruction projects, they will be proposed later. And then and $100 million. Yes, is it that I can go beyond the 2 minutes? But I want to deal with this matter because she said that you hadn't answered this question. As we've stated in the paper, we haven't really done any calculations as such. We've taken into account the damaged cost. About 2 million people have been affected, and we've also made reference to past experience. In the Wenchuan earthquake, we donated $300 million to the provincial government, and in the Qinghai case, we made a donation of $100 million. And so we've made reference to these past examples in proposing the figure of $100 million. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. So they are saying that providing relief to victims is like putting out a fire. It's something urgent. So are you telling us that the Sichuan Province doesn't have the money to buy medical supplies and relief items for the victims? The answer is definitely no. And I believe, and you're talking about NGOs' failure to repair the roads or construct the roads. So I don't think you're talking about urgent relief. So can I ask you this question once again? What is this $100 million for? Now, 2 weeks have already lapsed, and in fact, the situation has improved, and so I don't think the money will be for buying emergency supplies. And I think we now have time to work out individual projects, and then we can have proper monitoring of all these projects. Now, Mr. Michael Tian said that in fact, this is an insult to Hong Kong people. I do not agree. We need to set a good example for the PRC. If it's not an urgent task, then let's do it well and do it properly. We shouldn't encourage the provincial government to just receive the money and then spend it. You'll be using it your 2 minutes very soon. Do you want her to give you a reply? Chairman, timing is important. It's an urgent matter. We are talking about the Disaster Relief Fund. And the purpose of the fund is to provide timely assistance and relief to the victims after a disaster. So it seems that C.Y. Leung is the one who thinks that this is for emergency relief. It's in fact Macau donated 100 million, and that's why we also want to donate $100 million. Leung Hwa-hong, let her give an answer. I've already given a reply, Chairman. Mr. Wong Yew-man. Chairman. I think we've seen this integration of propriety and protocol. Now, so we are beginning to see more and more malpractices here. So let's not criticize others. Now, 5 years ago, the political parties kept announcing how much money they had raised. And I understand that DAB has only raised about $600 so far, and the Civic Party only about $10,000. This is public opinion. CS4A, do you understand that? Why is it that we need to approve the $100 million? Now, you called me a few times. I didn't want to return your calls. In fact wanted to filibuster, but people said that I should be working for the public good. But you can see that the morale is low. You can see that nobody, people have lost interest. Now those on this side are not interested in speaking, and those on the other side will give the green light. But of course, I have to keep on filibustering. I have to do that at a sitting. I could have tabled many amendments. Do you know that what I am saying, I am in fact saying these things on behalf of many Hong Kong people. Many Hong Kong people agree with me. We can't give you the $100 million. People say providing relief to the victims is as urgent as putting out a fire. The fire occurred 2 weeks ago. In fact, most of the money has gone to the hands of the corrupt officials. And last time we donated $13 billion. Mr. Low Wai Kwok, I would like to again refer to the SMS sent to me by a female engineer in Lushan. She said that the most urgent need of the victims was housing at Taiping Village. About 40% of the houses were not suitable for people to live in. The provincial government intends to provide temporary housing before 3rd of June so that there can be reconstruction. And only the government is in a position to provide temporary housing on a massive scale. So, Chairman, what I want to say is that during the initial stages, providing food and water and safe shelter were the top priorities. And now, it's time to provide interim housing for the victims, and only the government is in a position to do that. Some people say that, in fact, mainlanders are very wealthy, our country is very rich. I am sad to hear such remarks. This earthquake is not as serious as that which occurred 5 years ago. Still, it's a very serious earthquake. And how come people can block the approval of the $100 million? In fact, we have engineers who are now in the quake hit areas, and they are providing actual assistance to the victims. Why is it that there are people who dare to speak nonsense here? And I think it's important that we also provide spiritual support to the victims and to those who are really doing relief work there. In fact, these victims do need such assistance, and I think they are sad when they learn of these negative reports in Hong Kong. All right, we have 3 members who would like to make comments in the third round, so please do not repeat what you've said. 1 minute for each member. Helena Wong Yuk-man, and Leung Kwok Hong. Chairman, just now I asked the CS4A about the monitoring mechanism, and the CS4A said that if members wanted the monitoring mechanism to be improved, she would welcome such comments. Can I ask the CS4A in what way the monitoring mechanism can be perfected? Yes, Chairman, thank you. In fact, in my opening speech, I tried to explain to members that when we make donations to other governments, we follow an established mechanism which applies to the mainland government as well as to other governments which have received donations from the Disaster Relief Fund. And so I think it's just fair to adopt the same mechanism this time, or else we'll be sending a particular message to society. But of course, we can look ahead. We should always look ahead. In fact, there are a few members who sit on the Disaster Fund Relief Fund Advisory Committee, and we are willing to discuss with them how to perfect the system. Mr. Wong Yuk-man, but then they are all in the pro-establishment camp. One of them is Mr. Chiang Kwok-chu. In fact, there is no difference. He is also pro-government now. Priscilla Leung said that things must not be politicized. You go home and be a babysitter. You know, when we are here, we are discussing politics. In fact, I'm not talking nonsense. We are all here to make our points. We are all here to give our comments. And finally, we'll put this to the vote. How come you're saying that some people are talking nonsense? And if you have no arguments to make, then you just tell people not to politicize things. So you're like C.Y. Leung. We don't know what you are talking about. No sound bites. I think when I say that alcohol is thicker than water, then everybody remembers the sound bite. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Chairman, what I'm trying to say is that nobody is saying that there shouldn't be money to provide relief. We just want to make sure that the money will be used to fund certain projects. I think this is important.
We donated to Japan, but did we find anybody corrupt in Japan? We only caught numerous corrupt officials in Sichuan. Maybe they were not, or they dare not take away our money. Maybe they took away just a little. I think this is a joke. Is it a crime for us to ask for monitoring of the funds from Hong Kong people? You say we should show our concern, but showing our concern can wait. They have money. They are doing relief work. I think dedicated funding should be for dedicated work, and maybe we can help with the rehabilitation. Why force us to vote in a rush? Dr. Helena Wong, the fourth round, 1 minute. Chairman, I think the CS really has to size up this situation. We don't want to make indiscriminate donation, but you are repeating yourself, Dr. Wang. Many people have said that already. The thing is, the situation is not phasing up to the change in the position. There is no urgency. The performing industry, the business sector, other people have already come up with more than $100 million, and that has already gone to Sichuan. And also there is $48.5 million sitting in the disaster relief fund. So there is no urgency. You say there is no monitoring. You just want us to give you the money and then you will tell us whether there will be monitoring later. In fact, in the Bay Area in San Francisco, they only got $1,000 in one day. And in fact, in 2008, there was much more. No more members would like to speak, and everybody has spoken. I have received a motion proposed by Mr. K.K. Fong. We will put it to the vote now. Mr. K.K. Fong is not here. Let us deal with the next one first. The next one is from Mr. Kenneth Chan. This is a motion. I will put this motion to the vote, that this committee agree to deal with the motion proposed by Mr. Kenneth Chan according to 37A of the standing orders of the Finance Committee. A division is claimed and the division bell will ring for 5 minutes. Mr. Kenneth Chan, would you like to read out your motion now? Would you like to read it out? I don't think it's necessary because it's already on the screen.
喺我宣布
Before I announce the results, members, please check your votes. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. The results are 24-39 against. I declare the motion negatived. Yes, Mr. Tam Yu Chung. According to the standing orders of the Finance Committee 47, with regard to the duration of the division bell, now since there will be a series of votes to be taken, I like to move that the division bell should only ring for 1 minute. Mr. Tam Yu Chung is proposing that the division bell should only ring for 1 minute. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Those against. I think the motion is supported by the majority of members voting. So starting from the next motion, the division bell will only ring for 1 minute. The next motion is moved by Mr. Gary Fan. I'll put it to the vote. Mr. Gary Fan, would you like to read out your motion? Yes, Chairman. That the SALG should be a good example, and the CE, EXCO unofficial members, and all the principal officials, including undersecretaries and political assistants, and all LegCo members should donate 1 month's salary for disaster relief, so that there will be a total of $14 million. And also the CE should lead the group to Sichuan so that the money would actually go to the victims. And if this is carried, we do not have to make the donation of $100 million. Mr. Lam Tai Fai, a point of order. Can I please ask questions on the motion? The 1 minute is over and voting will begin. Ms. Emily Lau, he is asking whether there can be a discussion. If you carry it, there will be a chance to ask questions. If it is vetoed, there will not be the chance to ask any questions. Thank you, Deputy Chairman, Ms. Emily Lau. Please now vote on the motion first. Before I declare the results, members, please check your votes. Voting is now closed and the results are displayed. The results are 16 for, 37 against, 1 abstention. I declare the motion negatived. The next motion from Mr. Gary Fan. There will be a division and the division bell will ring for 1 minute. Mr. Gary Fan, would you like to read out your motion? Yes, please. Chairman, that before the SARG ask for an injection into the disaster relief fund, it should first of all clarify whether the application is in line with the criteria for putting money into the fund. Mr. Lam Tai Fai, maybe just now the Deputy Chairman was not clear in her explanation. In fact, we are voting on whether we should discuss the motion. So it is not a vote on the motion as such. If you want to discuss the motion, you should vote yes so that we can discuss it. This is a vote on whether we should discuss the motion. All right? Voting will now begin. Before I announce the results, members, please check your votes. A few members have not pressed the button. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. The results are 24-35 against. I declare the motion negatived. The next motion from Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, you are here. Mr. Sin, I think all can read the motion on the screen, so I don't have to read it out. Okay.
馮檢機員
Mr. KK Fong, just now I did not find the time to come down. I already told you, since you were not here, we have to deal with the other motions first. So you now stand at the end of the line, okay? You are not the second in the line anymore because you were not here.
Voting
now begins. Before I announce the results, would members please check the votes? Voting is now closed and the results are displayed. The results are 18 for, 38 against. I declare the motion negatived. The next few are from Mr. Albert Chan, and the first one has been put on the screen. Mr. Albert Chan, would you like to read out the motion? I don't think so. I think all members can read. If they can find a reason to object to it, then please do. Before I announce the results, would members please check the votes? Mr. Kenneth Leung, have you voted? Okay. Voting is closed and the results are displayed. The results are 19 for, 37 against, and there are 2 abstentions. I declare the motion negatived. The next motion is also from Mr. Albert Chan. Mr. Chairman, this is very simple. It states that if the application is approved, it should all go towards the buying of first aid items. But of course, there can also be corruption involved, even if only first aid items can be purchased. Mr. Albert Chan, I hope you will just read out the motion and not add anything to it. Shouldn't he be able to say anything within this minute? I don't think so. I think members should only read out their motions and not use the 1 minute to debate on the issue. Mr. Raymond Wong, you are an experienced councillor. Well, of course, you are in high spirits. Today, I'm not in high spirits. Mr. Raymond Wong, please.
喺我宣布表決結果。
Before I announce the results, will members please check the votes? Voting is closed, and the results are displayed. The results are 17 yes, 39 no. I declare the motion negatived. The next motion is also from Mr. Albert Chan. Mr. Chairman, this is even more reasonable. If people object to it, the problem is with them. I'm saying that the money should not be used by mainland officials for social functions. If you object to this, you are condoning to corrupt acts.
Michael Teen. I think this question whether or not we should discuss this matter and not our position. Before I declare the results, will members please check your votes? Polling is now closed, and the following is the results. The results are 24 in favor, 35 against. I declare that the motion is negatived. The next motion is also moved by Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, again, this is a reasonable motion. You just need to refer to the last sentence. We should not allow mainland officials to use the donations to acquire materials not related to disaster relief. Well, this is a most sensible and reasonable motion. Why is it that we're not allowed to discuss it? If members wish to engage in private conversation, you may do so outside of this chamber. Before I announce results, please verify your votes. Voting is now closed, and we will indicate the results. The result is 23 in favor, 37 against. I declare that the motion is negatived. The next motion again is moved by Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, this is again a rational and reasonable demand, stipulating that the fund should not be used to pay the salaries of mainland officials. Before I announce the result, I'd like to ask members to verify their votes. Voting is now closed, and the result is as follows. 23 in favor, 37 against. I declare that the motion is negatived. The next motion is Mr. Albert Chen's motion. Well, this is proposed to enhance the regulatory mechanism because we're worried that the money will be spent in vain. If we approve the funding of $100 million, the authority should report to give this committee an update of how the funds have been used so that this committee can effectively monitor how the funds have been used. Of course, if there is only a reporting once every 30 days, a lot of corrupt practices might be hidden. But still, it's better than having no report at all. It's like the tens of billions of dollars we spent the last time. We don't know where the money had gone to. Before I announce the result, will members please check the votes? Voting is now closed, and we will show the result of the voting. 22 in favor, 37 against. I declare that the motion is not carried. The next motion again is moved by Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, again this is another reasonable proposal stipulating that the funds donated, the authority should update this committee once every 6 months, including the materials distributed, the timing of the relief, number of victims involved, to ensure that the fund will not be used for non-relief purposes. Because members who support the funding also support these proposals to ensure that there is a clear account of how the funds are used.
唔緊要，你想知道講乜，或者你請佢出邊一齊大家講下咯。現在開始表決。
Okay, voting begins. Before I announce the result, I'd like to ask members to check their votes. Voting is now closed, and we indicate the result. We have 23 in favor and 37 against. I declare that the motion is not carried. The next motion again is moved by Mr. Albert Chan. Voting begins. Before I announce the result, will members please check your votes? Voting is now closed, and we'll show the result. 23 in favor, 37 against. I declare that the motion is negatived. The next motion is moved by Ms. Sit-Ho. Is a motion moved by Ms. Ho today. Ms. Ho, would you like to? I'm waiting for my motion to be shown on the screen. Actually, the DRFAC, I understand, had not met for a long time to vet the allocation of funds, and he had not periodically verify whether or not the recipients of the funds have achieved their working objectives. So I'd like to appeal to the DRC to really, monitor periodically as to whether or not applicant organizations have actually done their work. Well, there is a technical issue here. It's already tabled for members. Perhaps I'll read it out for you. If you don't have it yourself, I do. Why don't you, read it, according to the paper? Pursuant to 37A of the Standing Order of the FC, I'd like to move the following motion. I understand that other than the briefing held on November 2012, the DRFAC for a long time had not convened meetings to vet applications for funding, and also had not verified whether or not the recipients of the funds have achieved its working objectives. We would like to urge authorities to, before approving the injection of funds to the DRFAC, ensure that the recipient organizations would ensure that and that the approval process should not be done by circulation, and that it should meet periodically to ensure that the funding actually is used for the is used to satisfy the objectives. Before I declare the result, will members please check the votes? Voting is now closed, and we will display the results. We have 24 in favor, 36 against, and 1 abstention. I declare that the motion is not carried. Next, we have a motion moved by Mr. Frederick Fung. Mr. Fung, would you like to explain your motion? Well, I think it's self-explanatory, Chairman.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
在我宣布表決結果前，請委員核對所作嘅表決。現在停止表決，顯示點票結果。表決結果23票贊成，37票反對，1票棄權。我宣布建議遭否決。如果委員冇其他問題，本人現在把這項目付諸表決。請贊成項目 FCR2013-14(3) 所在嘅建議委員。
All those in favor of the proposal put up their hands. A member is asking for division. The division bell will ring for 1 minute. This is the vote on FCR 2013-14-3.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins.
在我宣布表
Before I announce the result, will members please check your votes? Voting is now closed and we will show the result. "37 in favor, 23 against, and 1 abstention. I declare that the motion is carried. We've dealt with the agenda item today. The next FC meeting will be held on the 10th of May, 2013.